happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. It's like I don't know what that's all about. This is Disconnect to Connect, one word conversations. Now, this is the moment where I mention our sponsor, IamWilliamBrown.com, and we talk about some of the things that are available to you to allow you to stay within a conversation. The one thing that is there is my two books of Beyond the Shell, Finding You Beyond What Protects You, and The Journey to Stay You. They are two children's books, and not just for children's books, that help you discover more about yourself. A companion to those books are the U cards and the U journals. The U journal is that what I call the 15 minutes with you, and the U cards are a game and intention setting game cards for you to kind of just see who woke up today. So I typically will do a U cards for to set the attention for the conversation. And my quote card today I picked was, "Be you, the world will adjust." My I am card was a blank card. So within the blank card of I am, it is the first thing that comes to mind. The first thing that came to my mind is I am calm. So I am calm today. And you are curious is the you are card. So I am calm, you are curious, and be you, and the world will adjust. That is the intention for today's conversation, and today's word is embrace. So I am going to embrace all that, and just see how embrace is showing up for me. And this is the time where I invite my guest and friend up so we can have a conversation.
Phil?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing great. This is the moment where I invite my guests to introduce themselves however it feels comfortable to them.
Okay. So I'm Lori Tuominen, and I love that Bill brought up two cards. I am calm. I'm curious. You are curious. Um, so Bill and I met in 2017 when we went to Camp Good Life Project. I think Bill went. Did you go all 5 years?
Yes, all 5 years.
And I
So
only
did.
made it to 2017, and then they stopped having them in 2018. So in that configuration. But
Right.
Bill and the first time I met Bill, he was Batman. He was dressed as Batman, and I'll never forget it because he did this. He's like, "I'm watching you
Right.
guys up on stage." It was hilarious. It was really funny, and I just thought he's cool.
Right.
And I think it was a year ago. I worked with a woman named Angie Cole, who was
Right.
a coach, and Bill had worked with her. So Angie knew that I was in the process of trying to get a children's book puzzle published. Actually, this was 2018 because it was published in December of 2018. So Angie put Bill and I in touch because he had written his children's book, one at the time. I don't think you had two. And
Right.
I
Just the
was
one, right?
working on, yeah. So we had this wonderful conversation and about publishing children's books, which was really, really cool. And I just want to share.
Yeah.
You said be curious, which is one of the pages in my book. Here's the be curious page.
Wow.
And
That's
you
great.
said be you, the world will adjust. I like that. I was a little I used be yourself.
Right.
So similar. It's called Ways to Be from A to Z.
Right. And the one thing that I appreciate about your book, and I guess it's kind of complemented my book in the sense that just my question is what makes you you, right? To embrace that of
Right.
just really look how we're showing up and how we're not showing up, and the labels and all that other kind of stuff. And the one thing that and the main reason why I created the U cards is because of basically I left people with, okay, you're not this, or you get to decide what
Hmm.
what you are and how you show up. And that's where your book comes in.
Right.
So it's like, from A to Z, you can just go through and see how you're showing up or how you can show up. And that was the one thing that I really loved and appreciated about that, and just kind of have that tag team conversation that you don't leave people just worrying about, okay, now that I'm not my labels, who the heck am I,
Right.
right? And
Right.
it's like all the other things that we are.
And that our choices do matter, so
Right.
um, we the book is about positive ways of being, but we're not always positive. So
Right.
we can have a bad day and we can still choose how we show up. So that's kind of what I wanted to get at with that. But that's not why,
Right.
why that's not our conversation.
Oh
I just
no, but no,
your cards
it
were
is
part of it.
right. Absolutely, and I appreciate that. Within the conversation, things come up, and that was it made the perfect sense for that to come up, and I'm so glad that you did, because it leads us to our word to embrace. How does the word embrace show up for you?
It's interesting since you asked me to be on this show, which, by the way, I applaud you for embracing this challenge. It's really a really cool thing that you did. And when you wrote on the camp Facebook page that you were going to be doing, these, and I love that you call them conversation because they're not interviews, they're conversations, which is
Right.
awesome.
Right. Right.
And I love that, you when you first wrote, I'm going to be doing these conversations, and I thought, oh, cool, he's going to be doing these conversations during the work days, 5 days a week, and you said, actually, I said every day, and I'm like, oh man,
Right.
he decided to do, and you did. This is what your 68th one, I think
Right. This
yesterday,
episode
yeah,
68. Right.
yeah. So you have embraced that challenge, and a 30-day challenge and now a 68-day challenge is really a wonderful way of strengthening those muscles. You and your guest Sean yesterday talked about strengthening those muscles, and you definitely
Right.
strengthened that muscle, which I
Right.
applaud you for that embracing. I have to tease you a little bit. Yesterday's show, you I don't know if you're aware of it, but you actually used the word embrace. I think I counted 4 times.
Oh
I
wow.
wasn't
Okay.
I wasn't taking notes. I wasn't taking notes, but I thought, oh, this is cool because it's talking about how you embrace the challenge, or you embrace opportunities, or you embrace what you're trying to do. And I thought that's perfect. That's a perfect lead in for our word today.
Right.
So I
Wow.
also wanted to share. Have you heard of the company Life is Good? The
Yes.
clothing company.
Yes.
So one of
Absolutely.
the brothers, John Jacobs, graduated from UMass Amherst, which is where I live near UMass, and he
Okay.
was the speaker for graduation virtually this year. And there was a quote in the newspaper that I thought of you when I read, because I thought it was such a great quote. He said, "Whatever you want to do or hope to do, try it on a small scale. When you try, you either succeed or you learn. Either way, you win." Isn't that a great
Right.
quote?
Yeah. Yeah. Just embrace the activity. Just kind
Yeah.
of be in it. And so yeah, there was a lot of I guess general stores in North Carolina where I lived, and in the mountains and everything, and they would have that product, and so I went through my phase of Life is Good products. I had a T-shirt. I think I still have a hat. I think I have a bumper sticker too. So, but it was reminding me, or got me to embrace that no matter what is going on with my life, right? It's good
Right.
because I say, and that's why I connect it with the Good Life Project. It is I get to decide.
Right.
that my life is good and how it's showing up.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So when you asked me to be on this, and you mentioned that my word would be embrace, I started to think. So what about the word embrace? And we think of hugs. Hugs are a way to
Right.
embrace.
Hmm.
Um, Embracing opportunities, embracing ideas. I like to think about where what songs may have used it. Uh,
Hmm.
it showed up in lots and lots of song lyrics, most of which I'd never heard before. There's a
Hmm.
there's a British rock band called Embrace that was formed in
Hmm.
1990.
Wow.
There's a song called Sweet Embrace that was by the uh, BG band called the Tree Gees.
Hmm.
Um,
Never heard.
no, I hadn't either. It's
I
in a
guess
Pat
I'll
Benatar song. It's in a Pat
right.
Benatar song. We
I guess I'll
belong.
be
We
on
belong together.
Spotify looking at the Embrace songs, right?
um, the Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra jazz, written by George and Ira Gershwin, "Embraceable You,"
Yes,
which
I
actually has uh, the term gypsy in it. So there might be some racist connotations to that song now, but given when it was written, that's not all that surprising.
well,
There's pet insurance that's called Embrace. It was so interesting to just think about this word a little bit more in a way that I hadn't
right.
really thought of. So thank you for that. I like
Well,
to learn. I'm curious. So your "you are
yeah,
curious" sign was perfect.
right. Well, absolutely. It's like it's amazing when I pick those cards and the things that show up and and just where I am within that. I think for me, I think now with the pandemic and a lot of other things that are going on, it's just the physical level of embrace for me that feels like, I'm missing or I am going to have to adjust the I guess the need or the desire to do that, because
Mhm.
there was one point that I thought that before Camp GLP, if you would have asked me, I would have said, yeah, I'm not a hunger, right? I just don't hug people. I just I'll give you a tip of the hat and a wave and just kind of keep it moving. But really embracing, right? The hug, and just really realizing the importance of that, and finding people who are also huggers, was something that in the last 5 or 6 years that I just appreciate. And then to have a pandemic and how we connect with each other physically is changing, or will definitely change, and it'll be very interesting to see how we hug, how we embrace people that we you know don't quite fully know, if that, and so that's going to be an interesting thing, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah, well, even the people we do fully know, like I have four
Right.
grandkids, which I
Mm.
haven't been able to physically touch them for
Mm.
for 4 months since February.
Mm.
I have seen
Wow.
them once. We did physically distance, and I like the term physical distance because social
Right.
distance, we need our social connections. And
Right.
so I like the term physical distance. But yeah, my youngest grandson is 7 months old. He was born in October, and he's spending his days with his mom and dad and his big brother who just turned 3. And what's this? What's his? Is he going to be able to come to us when this is all done, or when we
Right.
open up our bubble to include
Right.
their family?
Right.
Which we haven't, mostly because we don't live in the same physical location.
Right.
They're in the Twin Cities, as I mentioned. I'm in Western Massachusetts, complicated by working in northern Wisconsin. So um,
Right. Wow.
yeah, but we're embracing it, embracing the change, the opportunities that come our way. Um,
Right.
yeah, but just how are we going to do that? I just read a New York Times article a couple of weeks ago about how how you can hug during this. They've said put on your masks and each turn opposite directions, and you can hug, and then wash your hands.
Wow. And then wash your hands, right? Wow. I think within the concept of embrace or the definition or understanding of embrace, there is that acceptance, there is that willingness, there is that desire. And I think when you look at, I guess for myself, when I look at doing something new or having a new understanding about something, to really surrender to
Mm-hmm.
that, and and embracing that, it seems like it is it's one of those simple but not easy things.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned on some of the shows that the my simple and not easy category is turning into like a drawer. Our messy drawer. It's like, oh, that's where all the simple and not easy things are. So it is something that, because of my curiosity, I want to be able to, embrace new ways of thinking and new ways of looking at things. But at the same time, I want to be cautious and be more aware, and recognize that there's a level of safety, or there's a lot of other things that will kind of put the full surrender or embracing of something, back. And it's like it's showing up physically, but now I think it's showing up the way I think about things and how I get information, or how I really, kind of embrace something that happened. Is it like the same? Does it fit in the category of how you do anything is how you do everything, type of thing? I don't know if you ever heard that
I have.
before,
I have.
but is that how embrace shows up for you also?
It's a really good question. And I don't know if I have an answer for it. Um, as you were talking about the acceptance and wanting to embrace and wanting to be cautious, are are yeah, it's a good question. Can they be? Are they mutually exclusive, or are they showing up at the same time? I think it's
Right.
both. And I suppose it depends on the person.
Right.
The Which gets to the how you do anything is how you do everything, right?
Right.
Um, it's a really good question. Yeah, I'd have to think on that one for a while.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's like sometimes, especially in these conversations, things come up. It's like, okay, is this a question that I just need to answer so I can move on, or is just a question?
Yeah,
And I think following that curiosity kind of creates that I don't need to know the answer for that right now, but it's just I am on the journey to do that, because there are going to be times in my life where I'm going to have to make a decision if I want to embrace someone, right? I am, so I am going to have decisions where I'm going to have to embrace an idea or something new. And so the more that I will explore that, or really understand how I can protect myself and how I can be open to the possibility, then I won't, be in a place of regrets or confusion or all the other things that come along when there's this pause, in that moment. So, I don't know, just asking the question gives you access to something else,
yeah,
or what's really important.
yeah. The space to explore.
Right.
I think of, and I think it was your guest yesterday, who said something about, he used the term, I wonder what would happen if I did this. And it made me think of the theme for the camp that we went to in 2017, which was what if?
Oh yes, I remember that. Right.
And to use what if around the word embrace. What if I embraced this opportunity? Or what if I embraced this change? Or what if I embraced the living living at home for 2 months,
Right.
going very few places? Or
Right.
what if, I just, I don't know. I was thinking about that. They're all interrelated,
Right.
right? I mean, it's such an interest if we let them be.
Right.
Um, explore them with curiosity and self-kindness and kindness to others.
Right.
I years ago I was in a job that I was really unhappy with, and I was in the process of leaving it. And I was had gotten trained to be a coach, and I was doing a puzzle that I call my coach puzzle. It was that Holstein Manifesto life.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It had all those things, similar to that. It wasn't the
Great.
Holstein
Like
Manifesto,
it's
but
like the
very
life
similar.
wheel or something like that. Something like
Some
that.
it's actually
Something like.
like it looks like it kind of looks like a Wordle. Those Wordles that
Okay,
have
got it.
different. So
Right.
it's got life, and then spend time with people you love, be curious, laugh often. That
Got it.
those types of things.
Okay.
And I started to do this puzzle, and I bring it up because one of the things on the puzzle was embrace change.
Hmm.
And on this puzzle, I first of all, it was um, black background with white lettering, and so all the pieces looked exactly the same,
Right.
except different sized letters. So, the word life was pretty big, and then some of them were smaller, and all this stuff. And I have never felt like quitting anything in my life as much as I felt like quitting that puzzle. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second, because this is my coaching puzzle, and I'm just leaving this job to do coaching.
Be a
And
coach.
I thought,
Right.
this is like too funny that I feel like quitting this puzzle, right? So I
Right.
soldiered on. I kept working on it, and I started to take pictures of it while I was working on it. And
Hmm.
something really interesting happened. Those things that I had felt really comfortable with, or that I felt were part of me, like spend time with people you love, um, laugh often.
Right.
Um, I think embrace change might have shown up. I don't remember, but there was one there. I started to notice that the things that was already incorporated into my life
Right.
showed up. Like they showed up right away. Those things that were a little more elusive took
Right.
longer to put together. And so
Wow.
this puzzle became a metaphor for what was happening in my life. And there was one phrase that absolutely didn't have any pieces to it. And the word was do what you love. I mean, the phrase was
Hmm.
do what you love. And I thought,
Wow.
this is really fascinating that this puzzle has become a metaphor for the puzzle of my life. Um,
Wow.
and so when you gave me the word embrace, when you chose my word embrace, I thought of that puzzle too. I thought of
Wow.
embrace change as part of it all. And some people do embrace change, and other people don't. Some you know
Right.
some people stay, and I was that person for a long time. I stayed at a job that wasn't that meaningful to me because it felt safe, because it
Right.
felt the thing that I knew, even though I didn't like it, felt safer than the unknown, which I didn't know what was going to be out there. And I think
Right.
that's why a lot of people don't embrace change,
Hmm.
I think.
No, I definitely appreciate that, and I get that, and I think that's a fascinating thing through a coaching puzzle form to kind of, the most difficult ones are the ones that you know how it's showing up or not showing up in your life, and you just think, because I could just see myself with these pieces and just like kind of running. Oh yeah, I know where that is. I know where that is. And then you see this, like, I have no idea where this.
Right.
But it's
Right.
like that's my life, right? These
Right.
are things are getting away from me. It is something that I read at the beginning of the year. One of the second books that I read was Jonathan Field's book, Uncertainty. And there was a part in that, and so it was like in February that said, embrace uncertainty. And
Yeah.
then, this, and then all of this happens, right? So it was like the element of really getting to a place where, you know, uncertainty is around you, as
Hmm.
it's going to happen. How you not just deal with it, or how you embrace it, and how you can be able to I guess, benefit of it, and just kind of all the things that can come up within that time will dictate your, in some cases, your mental health and self-care, all the other things that are connected to, what happens when there's uncertainty in my life. This is not working. And the more that I was able to embrace that, the more that it kind of prepared me. And it was like at the beginning of the pandemic, and there was this guilt that I was handling it a lot better than a lot of other people around me, because there was a lot of, and there's still a lot of, confusing information, because it's an ongoing, people trying to understand and figure it out. But for me, it was like, all right, this is what, okay, now we wear a mask, or now
Yeah.
now we're 6 feet apart. And it's
Right.
like, and it's just kind of going with it, because I chose to, from the invitation in Jonathan's book, is to embrace it. And so it was like, all right, let's go. But it is, I totally understand, that how that's a difficult thing, a place to come to, where you, because it's like, what I'm am to embrace this means that I am surrendering to this. I don't need to be in control of this. I can just kind of be with this. And sometimes it's a very difficult proposition for for people.
Absolutely. And
And
scary.
yeah, and scary.
That fear of the unknown, I think, is probably one of the largest human fears there is. So, how fortuitous that you read Jonathan's book in February, his
Right,
book on uncertainty, and
right.
he's telling you to embrace uncertainty. And then in March, I don't know when you went to wait, you you work mostly from home, I'm
Yes,
assuming.
absolutely. Yes.
So it wasn't a huge change for you
Right.
to go from working at home to working remotely,
Right.
since you were
You know,
kind of working remotely anyway.
it was kind of funny, because I had a conversation, one of the early conversations of the show, with Angie, and we talked, and our word was freedom.
Mhm.
And so it was like, near the beginning of the pandemic and everything. And I was like, hey, even though I primarily work at home, the fact that now someone was telling me to stay home, it was like, wait a
Right,
second, right?
right.
It's like, now you're like messing with my freedom, right?
That's
It's
right.
like all that kind of stuff. And it was just very interesting how I kind of had those moments of, don't tell me to stay home, and it was
Right,
like, wait a minute, I work from home. So, so it's
right.
like, it was a really bizarre in that,
Yeah,
that moment. And I had to let that go, and just but really wonder, and just kind of embrace that was coming up for me.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it was like really, interesting at the beginning,
yeah.
of everything.
Yeah, I can imagine. And the control, it's putting, it's giving up that control of being able to
Right,
go to and from your house when you want to
right,
not, to being asked to stay home, like you said. It's a,
right,
I think there's a control thing. We like to be in control of our lives. And that
right,
embracing uncertainty, embracing change means that we know we're not fully in control of our lives at every moment in our day.
right,
And we still have choices, like our
right,
books talk about, right? So I could have been miserable when I can't see my kids and my grandkids.
right,
Or I can think, when you saw enough of the science around what they're trying to do to flatten the curve and all that, it's like, okay, so if we're trying to make it so that it goes away, or at least we know it's not going away. We know that what we were trying to do is make it so that there were places, hospitals that could accommodate,
right. Manage it, right.
manage it. So we could either fight it or accept it and know that it's temporary. It's probably going to be longer than we would like it to be.
Right.
And how are we going to be in this moment? How are we going to come out of this better than we were going into it?
Right.
And it's super interesting what's come, what's been happening in our country since then too. Like
Right.
everything's building one on top of the other.
Right. It's
Fascinating.
yeah, there's a conversation, I can't remember the word, but there was there's a sense that the pandemic kind of slowed us down because we were, and I'll put myself in the category. The feeling that I was so busy, so too busy to do anything. So then I was slowed down, right? So slowed down. I had in many cases a singular focus, and then when I became focused or kind of slowed down, then I became aware of a lot of other, I won't say horrible things, but difficult things that that I tolerated or ignored within our society, within our wow. And I think that's, in some cases, that's what the Black Lives Matter conversation is all about. Is
Mm-hmm.
that, hey, it didn't take the pandemic to let us know that this was a concern, but it took the pandemic to kind of singularly focus us on an issue of a challenge that is happening with a people in our nation, and it's been going on for a long time.
Right.
How we go into these conversations, how we embrace this conversation, how we kind of understand it is still up for debate. But I think the more that we get quiet or less busy, the more things come up for us. And I think it came out what I think what you were speaking to about your family and your work. And it's like, hey, this is this is what I think of my family, and this is how we're going to connect, and this is how we kind of make time and
Mm-hmm.
make ways to kind of do that. And it's like too often, not in a more recent past, we had reasons, and again, I'll try to speak for myself. I had reasons why I didn't spend as much time with my family, or I didn't call these people friends that I cared about, said that I cared about, as often. But now I have all this time and on these opportunities to connect with my friends, connect to my loved ones, because it is now I make it a priority because of everything else that is going on, and just embrace that. You know what? I want to talk to my friends more. Embrace the fact that I do want to have conversations like this. And I can make time for conversations like these instead of saying that only one conversation per day, or or every once in a while have these type of conversations, but really kind of embrace the fact that I still do have a choice within it. I
Mm-hmm.
do have a choice in my life, even in this uncertainty, even in this, and sometimes things traumatic, or kind of really crazy times that we're in.
Yeah. You brought up some really important points, the awareness. I think often we as humans keep ourselves busy because it's easier to be busy than it is to reflect on
I
what's
got it.
happening. And that's why when often people do take the time to meditate or go for walks in the woods or talk with friends, it's sometimes it can be hard. It can be really hard because we're used to being busy, and now we're asking our mind to slow down. We're asking
Right.
our body to slow down,
Right.
and it's not always easy or comfortable to do.
Right.
And so I've heard a saying, and I wish I knew who to attribute this to, but I don't. That everyone should meditate for 20 minutes a day, except those people who don't have time for it. They should
Right.
meditate for an hour,
Right.
right? It's
That's
like,
great.
so there's something about that taking the time, making the time, which creates a space, which then creates more time, which I think we're finding.
Right.
Although I have to say, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've been busier now than
Yeah.
I have been, even, in the months leading up to it.
I think, and because I feel the same way. Because when people, I think I shared, I don't know if I shared it yesterday on the show, but there is, when people would say, oh, geez, um, I commend you for this daily commitment that you have. And it was like, you know what? Really? I have just reduced my goofing off time, right? By 90 minutes, right? So I goof off a little less, and and so I realized that even though I am in some cases busier than I've been in a long time, or kind of, it feels like I'm busier doing the things that I want to do. I'm
Yeah.
busier doing the things that are important to me, other than just busy work. And
Yeah.
so embracing that, hey, yeah, there was a lot that I did today, but there was a lot that I did today,
Yeah.
instead of, in some cases, how I felt before was, it's just like, I know I did something today. I have no idea what.
Right.
Right.
Right. I don't know.
Right.
They
It's
happened.
like,
No
right.
idea.
And there was a lot of things that had my attention, but I have no idea what.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So,
I think you use the word, you're doing less goofing off by 90 minutes,
right.
but we're goofing off together as friends, which
Right.
is really rich. There's a
Right.
richness in that, spending time with, and you've had such a varied number of guests on your show
Right.
that I could see why it would feel, it feels important. It feels, um, I don't know. It feels like hanging out with friends, which
Right.
doesn't feel like work, which
Right.
means it's perfect work, right?
Right. And that is the work. And I think
Yeah.
learning, more about myself, learning more about my friends, recognizing the power and the richness of the conversations are within my network, as business say, it's like, what's your network? And I knew on some level that I was connected to some amazing people, but these 68 days really has let me know that, yeah, I am, right.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're up to some amazing powerful things, and it's like, wow, and they're, one, available to me if I if I send out an invitation. And it's
Yeah.
like, and that even means more. And that was something that I really had to embrace with the GLP community, is that I didn't know how much I needed that community.
Hmm.
I felt that I needed, a tribe, or people that understood me or appreciated me and all that other kind of stuff. But once I got it, it was like, yeah, I really needed, this. And it's kind of made a difference in how I show up, and how I, get back to our word, embrace my life.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of my life that I felt that I was just, a court reporter, just kind of reporting on things that were happening, versus creating,
Yeah.
you know, being the author of my life.
Yeah.
I have the pen. I can decide. 5 or 6 years ago, I did not think I had one children's book. Now that I have two.
Yeah.
It's like, where was that? It was in my life that I wasn't living,
Yeah.
and just being, embracing that, and so that has been, I guess, the fun thing about being curious about my life,
Yeah.
is that, okay, what else do I got? Okay, what else do we, what else am I up to, or what else do I want to be up to, and just be, excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the name of Jonathan's book?
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty. So
Right.
yeah, I'm like, it went out of my head for that. Exactly. You're embracing that uncertainty. Um, and I think so often we just feel like when we're living the life we think we're
Mm,
supposed to live.
right.
You didn't know you had a children's book in you, much less
Right.
two, right?
Right.
And then when you open it up, by the way, we're saying Camp Good Life Project, Camp GLP, not Camp GOP. I don't know how many times
Right.
have you ever had that, Bill, where people are like, wait,
What?
did you go to Camp GOP?
Right. Right.
It's
Yeah.
Camp GLP.
Right.
just just making sure
Right. Yeah.
that
It's like
we're
because it's a part of our language, we just think like, oh,
that's
everybody
right.
knows what
That's right.
GLP Camp GLP
Right.
means, right?
right.
So
Right. Yeah. No, it's yeah, it's taking the time. So for you, it was discovering through going to camp. That's what
right.
helped you discover that you had a children's book in you, or that you were doing work that maybe might not have been as meaningful to you
No,
as
it really wasn't. It really started with just the first year. Even though I've went to all 5 years, um, I I believe that I was only present for 3 of those years.
okay.
You're like, okay, what
No,
was, my body was here, right?
sure.
But the first year, I was like overwhelmed with it because it was like I was wound so tight, but I knew that I needed to be there, so I was there. So it was
Yeah.
like I kind of like signed up before I signed up, right? And so I was there, and I was just like overwhelmed with unicorns and all laughter and hugging and all that other kind of stuff, and it's like, all right, what the heck
You're
did
like,
I what the heck did
wait a
I sign up
minute.
for, right? The second year I was dealing with some trauma in my business and my in my marriage, and so we went as a couple, and I was more concerned about how the camp was occurring to her for me to even be present to the
Sure.
camp. And so it was like, okay, so I was like there and not there, right? And then the last 3 years, it was just me. And
Hmm.
I was like, all right, this is important. I'm going to be there. And that's, how I showed up as Batman, right?
Hmm.
And having fun and just really kind of being in it. And I think really it took me almost 2 years to fully embrace having a good life and it
Hmm.
having and basically being the author of that, and so what I got from our community is that I can be myself, and I went from being Bill to embracing William, and the more that I embraced I am William Brown, I was able to embrace everything about me to write the books.
Yeah.
So it was from the finding my tribe to finding myself to finding what was in me, um, that I was going to be able to let out.
So
So
defining your voice.
yeah,
Yeah.
defining my voice
Yeah.
and using it.
Yeah.
So it's
So it was
all
an
in the
iterative
embrace.
process.
Right. It's all in the embrace, right?
Yeah.
You know. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's good that you went all 5 years, because if you had only started in year three,
Right. Where
you
would
would
I
have
be?
had that you might have only experienced camp 1 year,
Right.
right? If you went all
Right.
three. Yeah.
Right. And it's
So
it's
interesting.
yeah, it is. It's fascinating, and it was really, there were a series of decisions within that embrace, right?
Hmm.
But and yeah, I think a part of my conversation around labels, I have a 5-step process. And the I think the third step is embrace. And embrace your label, kind of own it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the most difficult part, because as you mentioned in your book and understanding your book, it is we can say the positive labels, but there are some negative labels that we show up as that, what, you want me to embrace that too? And it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
own that you're a jerk.
Yep.
The more that you embrace that, the more that you can see why you're showing up that way and how you're showing up that way, and you can make a different choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can make the choice not to show up as that.
Right.
But you have to own it. You have to embrace that
Yeah.
before you can let it go.
Yeah. There's that saying, what we resist persists.
Right. And
So
I
if you,
think
yeah.
right. I think there's a lot of things that continue to show up in our lives is because we are resisting it,
Mm-hmm.
instead of embracing it. There was a difficult conversation that I had with a couple of non black friends, and that I invited them to embrace that there are racists, but to be a non practicing racist
Mm-hmm.
and seeing how that would show up. Because I think because I was using it because I was thinking about the AA, framework, and that, I have a number of friends that will say, I'm an alcoholic, but I am, a recovering alcoholic of, 35 years,
Mm-hmm.
that they haven't had, they're not a practicing alcoholic, but they still embrace it and recognize that any day they can show up, as a practicing alcoholic. That's why they do the things and make the choices that they make. And I think our conversation around race, the more that we embrace that the only way that we're a racist is because of the construct of race. And
Mm-hmm.
and even though I would love to think that the construct of race would go away, I don't think it is. It's so much a part of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So if we embrace that we are racist, and I'll include myself in that, but I choose not to operate that way. I
Mm-hmm.
choose to see beyond race. I choose to not allow race to dictate me seeing you as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can grow. Then I can see you. Then I can see your humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And but until we embrace those labels, that label in particular, we really don't have access to it. Like I said, in my framework, there's a lot of other works and conversations about that. But I currently do not embrace the anti-racist conversation. It's because I believe that whatever we resist persists. If we are anti something, it's going to stay in that form because we are going to be fighting that. We're going to be looking for it. We're going to be fighting that. And so I choose not to embrace that. But I understand how people will need to get there. It could be a step. There's steps to
Yeah.
embracing, right?
The iterative process.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's the conversation that people are having. I embrace their their reason for having that.
Yeah.
But there's a part of that conversation that I can't be a part of because of my belief of of resisting and persisting.
Yeah.
So
So can I ask you a couple of questions?
sure.
So how did your friends, and you said they were friends, right? That you
Right.
asked them
Absolutely.
to
And they're still
embrace.
friends, right?
Good. So how did they respond to when you asked them to embrace being racist?
They said it was very difficult
Mm-hmm.
because how they made races mean, or the meaning that they had behind that label. They said that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
I am not. But I think there is so many, like all of our labels, there are so many levels to that. There are so many more meanings. I can say my what a black label means to me, but you can have a definition of what the black label means, good, bad, or whatever. You don't have that one, but you relate to people with that label, and
Mm-hmm.
you have beliefs and meanings behind that. So whatever that means. So I am saying that the reason why sometimes it's difficult for us to hold on to or embrace a label, and especially the racist label, is because of all of the ugliness that comes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that we can embrace the ugly and embrace, because we as human beings, I believe we make decisions and we show up ugly, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the more that we're able to embrace that ugliness of that, but let that go, and live beyond that and work beyond that and make choices beyond that, then we can, one, extend grace to ourselves and extend grace to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, if I just say, you're a racist and stop there, there's no way for me to see you any other way.
Mm-hmm.
And so now everything else that you are, I have no access to.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's my loss, but I've also created a prison for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you may only be in that prison when you're around me or other people that think like me, but you're still in a prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't see you. I won't see Lori. And so it's a very difficult thing, and it's something that I believe within my framework of living beyond our labels is that's your individual work that you have to do for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The invitation to take that on is an invitation. You can say
Yeah,
no.
it's fascinating because I think you're the first person I've heard, a person of color, who has said, and maybe I just haven't heard from others, that they don't agree with the anti-racist term, and and I find that fascinating because that's a term that so many white people are grasping because it's something they feel they can get behind.
Right.
So to say I'm a racist, which I believe that I am, unintentionally even, I've definitely benefited from white privilege. There's no doubt in my mind. Especially the more I'm reading about it, but to say the term anti-racist says that you're against racism. So how would to say I'm a racist makes it sound like I'm for racism. So what term would you use in place of anti-racist?
I don't have the language with that, and I think for me that yes, you are against racism or how a racist could show up negatively
Mm-hmm.
in a situation or in relationship to other people. What I am proposing is that it's not what you say, is your actions. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's more of not looking for another label, because I'm like I
Mm-hmm.
said, we have enough labels that we have to
Yeah.
manage. I don't need another nicer sounding one to kind of make me
Yeah.
feel better. And I'm not and I really I don't want to say that that's what the anti-racist type of thing, to kind of make people feel that, hey, I can get on board with that, right? But it is more about embracing the fact that human beings have a wide range of ways that we can show up for ourselves and each other.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, underneath the race conversation, is as a racist. And that you would create systems and you would create patterns and the things to kind of hold tightly to that belief, to kind of move from there. The more that we stop operating in that, And I think it gets to what Dr. Martin Luther King was talking about, to be judged or be related to by the content of our character.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get to the content of our character if we stay with our understanding or our the way race is showing up for many of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is, that is, like I said, the more that I believe that we kind of work through that ownership, then we can, there's sometimes that I have for myself, I have a hard time saying that, oh, geez, you're really being a jerk right now, or you're really being insensitive. It's like, well, that's not nice, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I don't want to say negative things about myself. And it's just owning. It's by the next thing is, why am I being that?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I showing up like this? And when I ask myself why, and really encourage myself to do that work, then I can go, oh, okay, I can act differently. I can choose to do something else. And that's what I'm inviting people to do.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I mean, I can blame how I show up as with my black label, as with my family, and say, well, this is what I was told, don't trust Whitey,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of just go in that frame. Or I can ask, why did my relatives say that? Why,
Mm-hmm.
and I can go through all of the whys. Why do I believe that?
Mm-hmm.
Why do, and then I can say, all right, well, I can go beyond that, or I can stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to clean up my words, or kind of have different nice words, because there were words that I'll say, and we've really talked about this for a while. We're kind of past this. It's almost kind of two conversations, but there's some things that I would say to myself of that I am a very thoughtful person. I am meaning that I would give thought to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I evaluate things. But when I looked at that and that label for myself, I noticed that a lot of times when I would overthink or be really thoughtful about something, it was because I was afraid to kind of
Mm-hmm.
move forward.
Yeah.
So I kind of prettied it up and says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to give it some thought. I'm going to, I'm going to be attention to detail and all the things that we say that kind of made sense, and people would buy into that." But underneath that really lovely language that I was using was just fear of doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like sometimes we nice up our language and we don't get to what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why embracing the races part of how we're showing up is ugly, it's nasty, it's difficult, but it's like the more that the more that there is ownership of that, the more that we can make different choices. The
Mm-hmm.
more that we can say, yeah, this isn't working for me. This is not working for my relationships. This is not working for how I want to show up in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a few things coming up for me right now.
Okay.
One, I've never referred to myself as a racist before. So
Mm.
that's like, that's interesting. I'm because I would like to think that I, you know, think about people on the content of their character. I
Right.
mean, it's one of the reasons that my daughter who illustrated the book for me and I felt so strongly about having it being a multicultural book.
Right.
We
That's
wanted
beautiful.
we wanted to show that there's all different races and cultures included in here. The other thing that came up, and I just you said I am William Brown, and I've been
Right.
referring to you as Bill.
Right.
I apologize. I never even
No, it's
asked.
but I'm all of that. I'm all of that. I've
Okay,
embraced it. All of my names.
okay,
I
okay,
introduce you of that. So no, I
okay,
totally get it. So I don't want anyone to feel bad
Okay.
wrong, with
Usually
that.
I
But no,
check with people before I refer to them by their
right.
names. So at least accept my apology for not checking with you first.
I,
Um,
I will accept
but
that.
the other thing, when you talked about, using words that might be not nice, that might be, the thing that came to mind for me was, um, for me, checking in with, am I tired? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty?
Hmm.
Have I had enough sleep?
Right.
Because it almost seems like any of the times where I'm not at my best, those things are in play for me.
Right.
Um, and so, investigating not only what we're feeling emotionally and what we're thinking, but physically, check in with
Right.
our physical body.
Right.
Have
The
I slept?
vitality
Have
bucket.
I,
Right. Hmm.
I mean, when I mean, I think of when my kids were little, when they needed a nap and they hadn't had lunch yet. That's usually when they had
Right.
their breakdown
Chaos.
times.
Right.
And for me, when I would be home, for me, I called the witching hour at 5:30, when I was hungry
Right.
and needing a break, and that's when I wasn't at my best.
Right.
So it's good to know those things too, and then and almost even start there is am I doing this, because of these physical things going on, or am I being spiteful, or what is
Right.
playing out in why I'm having that
Right.
response?
Wow. No, I totally get that. For me, Jonathan's framework of the three buckets and the vitality bucket is really, important to me, and it goes into the equation is what is happening right now to cause me to be a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
not the way of my intent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so usually it's because, am I hungry? Am I sleepy? Am I all the things that in that self care, container, that because of the busyness, because of whatever, I those needs aren't met, and then you get what you get, right?
Yeah. Right.
And it's
Right.
like, well, deal with it later, right?
And then your intention, no matter how good your intention is,
Right.
it's not going to have the impact that you want it to have. Is your intention meeting the impact? And I
Right.
think that often, there's a disconnect, or can be a disconnect.
Wow. Wow, this is we have definitely talked for an hour, so that's so that has been something I wanted to see if there's anything else that is coming with you as we close today. Is there any final thoughts or anything that you want to take away from this conversation?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed when I've watched your other calls in the past, including the one on wisdom yesterday,
Right.
was that, um, because you're allowing space for these conversations to happen,
Hmm.
they go pretty deep. I mean, look, I didn't expect to talk about race
Right. No,
with the
I
word
didn't
embrace,
either. Right.
So
Right. Right.
it's like, oh, here we go. And
Right.
to
Right.
embrace that happened,
Right.
and it wouldn't have happened had you not allowed the space for it to happen. And I watched it happen yesterday, and I watched it happen in the past. When we only give ourselves 15 minutes, we don't usually go that deep. When you allow space for things to happen, some pretty amazing things can come out of it. So thank you for providing the space.
No, and I appreciate it, and there's a part of me that, as the host and as the person who invited someone, I work very hard not to kind of drag people into conversations, kicking and screaming and the
Mm-hmm.
things, and just allow them to go. And
Mm-hmm.
if that was something that I guess was uncomfortable, or something that really kind of you don't want to talk about in mixed company or whatever, you had that right. But that is the one reason why I don't talk about my race label often, because
Hmm.
too often it's I don't want to say it's not a safe space, but there is, as you can tell, I have a different approach to
Hmm.
to it than a lot of other people,
Yeah.
and sometimes it is seen as something less than, as something that I don't value,
Yeah.
that label, or I don't appreciate, or I don't connect to it, or whatever the case may be. But I do. I mean, there is nothing. Every day I wake up and I am reminded of
Yeah.
of that label, and it's a gift,
No.
of mine. And so yeah. So I just appreciate you staying within the conversation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the willingness to allow it to happen. It was great. The one thing you talked about AA and the label of I am an alcoholic, and I understand. I mean, AA has done a lot of things right. A lot of people have stayed sober because of AA. But I've done some workshops and stuff on strengths, and where so often people look at their weaknesses instead of what they're good at.
Mm.
And somebody came up to me afterwards and said, we could use something like this in AA because we focus so much on I am an alcoholic, and we don't have we all identify with that. And I thought it was such an interesting uh just an interesting thing to think about.
Right.
um because if you're always being reminded of what you are and what was your
Right.
past, it
Right.
feels like that's what you talk about labels, right?
Right.
That's where people are labeled.
Right.
And it was an interesting moment for me to think, oh yeah, this to give to introduce them differently. um, what would they choose to how
Right.
would they choose to introduce themselves,
Right. And
if they
that's
were focusing on strengths.
right. And I think that's what I guess what I'm pointing to in my conversation of I am my labels and I'm not my labels at the
Right.
same time.
Right.
And so I am an alcoholic and I'm not an alcoholic. That's how I'm able to,
Right.
to do that. So there is power in that ownership and letting that go
Yeah.
and accepting the reality that, what, this is who I am, and this
Yeah.
is how we're going to go. So, well, thank you very much. I'm going to put you in the green
Great.
room in the
Thank you so
show.
much. Thank you
No,
so much for inviting me.
this has been wonderful.
I appreciate
Blessings,
it.
blessings to you.
Take care.
Okay. Wow, it's when you embrace a conversation can be had. I think that's what I got from today's conversation. Um, I really appreciate just staying in it, because most of my conversations are around the 40-45 minute mark, and this one went a little longer, but this went as long as it needed to go. So the world wants you, the world needs you, and the world is waiting for you. So go be you. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow.